Tēnā koutou, I ngā reo I ngā mani ana kāngaranga maha, tēnā koutou I runga nō I te kaupā nāna nei tātou I karangi tēnei wā. Huri tēnei no Ngāti Kahurunu, no Ngaitahu, I mi kau ke koutou I tēnei rā. Good afternoon, everyone. It's quite weird doing this and seeing people in a crowd. I was asked, I think it was only like last week, to come on and present a short talk about a research project that we're doing as part of a National Science Challenge. The project's name is Ātea, and it's quite appropriate that I think everyone in this room is sitting in a room called the Ātea. So it's a collaboration between led out of the University of Waikato, together with the University of Otago, University of Canterbury through the HIT lab there, as well as we're collaborating with two iwi in Runanga, so Te Runanga o Awarua, and also Te Hiku Media up north. So the purpose of the project itself is to create a virtual digital space in which Māori knowledge can be created, articulated, interpreted, and interrogated, and also built. So one of the main kind of the goals that we are looking at in terms of this project is how do we connect to our diaspora, to our ever-increasing population that are living away from home. So these statistics are kind of rough, I think. There's around about 250,000 Māori that currently live overseas. And at present, I think Māori urbanisation sits around 85%. A recent piece of work which we've done with the Runanga down south have said that for their Runanga, there's around about 85% of their Runanga membership actually live away from their catchment area. So this project is very much about how do we connect to those ever-growing numbers of Māori who are not living at home. So our project, led out of SIFTI, Science for Technological Innovation, is one that is focusing on connecting Māori to their what we call mātauranga hapu, or their localised knowledge, to their tikanga, to their culture, histories, and their knowledge bases. And we want to create some technology-based solutions for that. So I suppose to empower them around aspects of cultural, educational, economic, and environmental aspects that they want to focus on. So we are using a kind of combination of AI, VR, AR, a little bit of XR, and these aspects of the project are led out of Otago University with Whaanga, and out of the HIT lab with Rob. And I'll cover that pretty briefly because I only got like 10 minutes to talk. And the broader part of the project talks to these aspects around Indigenous data sovereignty, creating digital repositories that are based on cultural understandings. And we're partnering with Māori industry partners, but also we have I suppose it's a group, advisory group, a cultural advisory group based around expertise in terms of cultural aspects. We also have iwi representation, rangatahi, some youth voices, and we're approaching it very much from a standpoint on trying to articulate what this space means for us. Right, so the kind of the things that we really are trying to focus on in this project is how does our cultural knowledge, how does our actual knowledge and those things that have been gifted to us, how do they how are they nuanced in when you're designing and deploying these experiences? And how can our cultural understandings be applied in ways that ensure that your physical, your mental, and your cultural safety within that experience are actually enhanced? And so we ask questions like, well, how does time, space, and place, how is it different for Indigenous peoples in this experience? And what are Indigenous realities when building a VR or XR experience? So do we take it for granted that these things are potentially the same, or do you sit there and develop a process in which you investigate this, that you pose these questions, and that you allowed your tikanga, your culture to build what the VR is or what the XR experiences are? So we have been, over the last 2.5 years, developing one of the fundamental principles that we believe in particular, from the iwi that I'm associated with, right in the deep dark south, is that you want to develop out relationships before creating what that VR XR experience is and retelling those stories. So we have spent a long time working on the relationship building, and also getting the technicians and the programmers to understand the deeper meanings to the stories, or to the kōrero that we are sharing, and the reasons behind that. So here is a slide of the marae that we have been, my marae down in Bluff, down in the South Island, that we have been developing out this project with. And one of the things that we have focused on in this project is to allow ownership of how the VR, the XR story is being presented, and very much trying to empower the communities that we work with to guide the way that the research is unfolding, guide the way that the experience itself is being delivered. For example, last week, Friday last week, Thursday and Friday, we took our prototype down to the marae, this marae here, and we brought the schools from down there through there. So we managed to get every school child from year 1 to kind of year 8, I think it is, to come through, give kind of feedback to us on how they felt about seeing their marae in this kind of and how in this kind of new dimension, and how they felt about that. And so one of the things that we're also exploring is how like, do you create an experience that is very much, does it tell you the entire story, or do you leave parts of that out? What I mean by that is, if you create an experience that tells you everything about the story itself, then it kind of takes away the originality of the story. So from an Indigenous perspective, the way that we share kōrero, the way that we share those types of genre is very much based on you leaving the way that you interpret that story, and the way that you perceive that story to the person, to the listener. What we don't want to do, what we're looking at the moment, we don't want to create an experience that takes the beauty or that thread of from an Indigenous perspective away from the person doing the experiencing. I've got a couple more. So this picture here, we are just capturing some stories for our prototype. So this is my uncle Bubba Thompson, with some of the crew from Otago, working on some digital storytelling, and capturing it and put it into a voxelated experience. This one here is we're working on some 3D storytelling, but around controlling the way that the avatar works, and also doing some work on with our community from down home. Is just how plausible are these stories? How do they feel about them? How realistic do they feel for them? How well is the story itself represented? And what are some of the cultural nuances that we need to take in and consider when doing the next build? This is a 3D capture of our marae, which is, we've stitched together, I think, about 3,000 photos. It's about halfway through to give it. We're also looking at ways of creating a cheaper way for marae to actually capture their own marae, and also taonga, trying to look at a cost-effective way to do that. And this is Rob with some multi-sensory experience stuff. So he's got a little rumble board there. We're creating another story around a story from home, and we're looking at the multiple sensory experience around that, introducing movement, sound, and smell into that one. And the last kind of bit of the puzzle is around telepresence, and in looking at being in the same space. What does that space mean when you're in different places and joining a VR experience from different locations? And we're doing all that work at the moment. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop my share. I could go on for heaps, but that's probably enough from me. So hora, tēnei nā, te mihi te kia koutou I tēnei rā. Yeah, so kia ora koutou.